People that don't know, there's almost 17,000 Vermonters over the age of 65 that have been diagnosed with Alzheimer's or another dementia. So that doesn't count people who are undiagnosed, misdiagnosed, under the age of 65. All of those are not counted in that. And then between 20 and 30,000 unpaid Vermonters are caregivers for someone with dementia, and they provided 28 million hours of unpaid care last year. So we always like to start by telling people, if you're touched by dementia, you are not alone. You are in the majority here, and that's why we do the work that we do, and are here in the State House advocating on behalf of that. So I'm just going to start by showing the first video. Then we have interns and advocates here to present our priorities, and then we'll show another video and have time for Q&A at the end. And feel free to get up, grab something else to eat if that. Sorry for folks on the screen. We're lunching in this room,
And it's free.
so
Yes.
without further ado, I'm going to show our first video. Hopefully this is going to work.
It feels important for me to share my story so that more people can come to grips with having, knowing, being willing to find out about Alzheimer's. I don't know without Barb what I would have done. Why don't you tell the early beginning and how attracted you were to me?
No. Do you remember that meeting in the conference room? No. Well, you have often remarked about how I was wearing...
Take time out. How am I? I'll be 80 years old and I have Alzheimer's, so I forget a few of these details.
Daryl is very willing to share his feelings, to admit his vulnerabilities, and I so appreciate that about him.
And we're both heart-feeling people. We're not interested in a lot of money. We're interested in living a rich life.
You're worried.
That's what we do.
It was probably 4 years ago or so. I reached out to his daughter, who is a registered nurse, and was just letting her know that I was seeing these things. And she said, it might be really good to have his doctor refer you just to get a baseline memory test. He was agreeable to that.
Without Barb, I may not have done anything until it was potentially way too late, or I didn't have the skills to do what Barb did.
In terms of Daryl's Alzheimer's, for me as the care partner now, caregiver down the road, what I picture is all of what that might look like, which I hear about in my caregiver support groups.
Again, I couldn't find anybody better than Barb to be with. She set everything up with the association. Superb of bringing us closer to working with my Alzheimer's personally. When Barb and I go to these events, we're with other people who have Alzheimer's.
I don't know how much more time I will have with who he is today. I know that I will be losing more and more of him, more of who he is over the next few years.
And I've shared it with basically with the universe. I have Alzheimer's. Would I be ashamed if I had a cold? No. The biggest thing for me is communication to people who don't know. Get the word out. Don't be afraid of it.
I think for me, one of the biggest things is to bring Alzheimer's and dementia out of the closet.
Hi, I'm Daryl Rudy.
Daryl, David Zuckerman, very nice.
Good to meet you.
Hi, Monica. We met before. I'm Barbara Edelman, St. Johnsbury. I caregive sort of for this guy. To me, that's a big service we can offer because Daryl is so okay with and courageous about being open about his diagnosis.
For me, the participation isn't denial, but it's healing.
So this is not one of my comfort zones.
Open the door. Let's find out how we can work as a culture to accept this disease called Alzheimer's.
So we saw some familiar faces there, including Barbara and Daryl. From St. Johnsbury, who've been to the State House many times and will be showing this video in Representative LaBounty's district next week during break at the Darling Senior Site as one way to, again, just get it in front of more people, do what we can to destigmatize, and also at all of our events, connect people with resources, the 800 number, which you all know about, there's more bookmarks on the table. We've seen in the past couple of years, calls go from like a call every couple days to almost 2 calls a day coming to that number from Vermonters. We've had over 600 or 700 people in the last 6 months participate in our education and outreach program. So we are on the ground around the state, was doing a program with a different intern and advocate on the screen in White River Junction last week. So we're doing what we can as an organization, as a nonprofit, to elevate awareness and connect people with resources. And that's why we're really supportive of all of you here in the State House that are helping us make that possible by helping to advance some legislation. So I'm going to turn it over to Christelle now. Christelle is one of our interns from UVM, and she's going to talk a little bit about one of our priority pieces of legislation and where it is right now.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me here. As Meg just stated, my name is Christelle Tanoki. I'm a senior majoring in public health sciences at the University of Vermont. My journey with the Alzheimer's Association began through my capstone course at UVM. And I'm thankful for this opportunity because not only has it given me an opportunity to learn more about the disease that took my grandmother this past summer, but also it's providing a platform for me to continue and fight this fight. So I'm here to talk about S302 and act relating to public health outreach program regarding dementia risk. I should mention that there is a companion bill, H535, with 43 co-sponsors. And I'd like to thank Representative Krasna for being the lead sponsor and building awareness about the legislation in the House. So thank you. Today, I will address 3 components of the bill. I want to talk about the importance of educating healthcare providers, the importance of educating the public, and enhancing public campaigns for increased effectiveness. This bill addresses the need to educate healthcare providers about the importance of early detection of Alzheimer's. Mary Claire Carroll shared her testimony recounting her sister's diagnosis of Alzheimer's at the age of 70. She described how her and her brother-in-law noticed changes in her behavior and urged her physicians to administer a cognitive test to confirm their concerns. However, the physician failed to recognize these changes and hesitated to conduct the test, depriving her sister of the necessary support and resources. It wasn't until 2 years later, after Mary Claire persistently voiced her concerns, that her sister was referred to a dementia and Alzheimer's center where tests confirmed the diagnosis. Section A of the bill, underscores the importance of Medicare or other annual checkups to screen for Alzheimer's and dementia. We want these providers to take into account that Alzheimer's typically begins to manifest in individuals aged 65 and older, although early onset cases can occur in individuals as early as their 40s or 50s. If Mary Claire's sister had received a cognitive assessment, it would have provided an opportunity for timely intervention and management. If she had received the cognitive assessment earlier, they could have potentially slowed the progression of Alzheimer's and improved her quality of life while managing her disease. The delayed diagnosis severely limited her autonomy over her health and available options. The heartbreaking reality is that those with Alzheimer's and dementia are already battling cognitive impairment, and they shouldn't have to face additional obstacles from their healthcare providers. Now, to my point of individual autonomy in healthcare decisions, it's crucial for the public to not only have access to information, but to be able to interpret it effectively. Understanding the early signs of health conditions such as Alzheimer's enables individuals to recognize symptoms early and seek medical attention and engage in preventative measures or treatments. Additionally, health literacy promotes better communication with healthcare providers. The CDC's definition of health literacy underscores individuals' ability to find, understand, and utilize health information not only for themselves, but for other people. Public health campaigns play a pivotal role in fostering community well-being, yet their effectiveness hinders on accessibility and cultural relevance. These campaigns must be communicated in understandable language to ensure comprehension across diverse audiences. Secondly, they should be accessible to all, including those without internet access or proficiency in the predominant language. For instance, younger children often find themselves translating complex health information for their parents, a practice that I frequently engaged in. Moreover, individuals may find themselves dependent on receiving news from someone with access to health alerts, leading to feelings of disempowerment. Additionally, cultural fluency is paramount to resonate with different communities, acknowledging their unique beliefs, practices, and customs. The cultural understanding is essential for making public health campaigns effective and engaging across all segments of society, ultimately fostering better health outcomes for everyone. I just want to again say thank you to everyone here who is sponsored and supportive of this bill. And it got passed in the Senate, so we're very, very happy about that.
It passed out of Senate Health and Welfare this morning, so it will be on the Senate floor and then we'll be coming to your body hopefully after crossover. And the committee did some really great work on it, strengthening, as Christelle was talking about, the need for language access services to people when they're dealing with complex diagnoses that are culturally appropriate and reflect the different cultures. So hopefully this bill is going to be a very strong bill and also one that sets precedent for other practices with healthcare providers in terms of looking at how our state is changing and looking at the different barriers that some people have to comprehending or feeling safe with the information that they're receiving. So, does anybody have any questions around S302 before we move on to the second priority? Yes.
This may be a very basic question, but I'm going to ask it. Is Alzheimer's and dementia, are they used interchangeably? It sounds like they're being used interchangeably, and that would be helpful for me to understand.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's a fabulous question and one that we should often start with, which is that dementia is the umbrella term and Alzheimer's is the most popular form of dementia. We use those terms interchangeably. People tend to know what Alzheimer's is. They can kind of relate to that better than sometimes the word dementia. But yes, when you hear us talking about it, it's interchangeable and this everything that we do is for people with any kind of dementia, not just with Alzheimer's. If they have dementia from Parkinson's or from a TBI or a different kind of dementia, we're fighting all the same fight together.
That's really helpful to clarify, because I think I had always seen like Alzheimer's as an agency, it was like focused specifically on that, not necessarily the umbrella of dementia. So that just opened a door for me. So thank you for clarifying that.
We say Alzheimer's and all other dementias, but Alzheimer's is already such a mouthful.
Yeah.
By the time you try to roll the rest off, you're like halfway through your talking time. So
I also understand that too. So thank you for clarifying.
Good question. Thank you. Is Alzheimer's or is dementia and Alzheimer's, is that something that's more prevalent in the United States? Do you know? And then how are other countries dealing with it?
wow, that's such a great question. And aren't we in the Vermont State House? We're supposed to be dealing with Vermont things.
It's all right. I'm just wondering.
It is all over the world. for sure. I don't know exactly if there's slight differences in prevalence, but it is very prevalent all over the world. And I think that there's a lot of different ways. We showed a movie at the end of last year with some partners in this room called Keys, Bags, Names, Words, and it was focused on a global institute of people from around the world that are studying dementia and what's being done. And I think sort of depends on the society, how they approach this. There's a lot to be said of slowing the progression, slowing the onset, and living a more fulfilling life through social engagement. And I think some countries, just the way they're set up with multi-generational housing, with people that can access markets and gardening and programs more, that's an easier component for them to add in than when we look at social engagement, we're thinking about what do we have to do to build out the senior centers so that they'll be able to accommodate this. And so I think there's some countries that do that a little bit better than we do and are a little bit farther ahead on that. And that's a lot about what the movie was talking about. One of the things that I thought was really just brilliant in it was that the doctor literally wrote a prescription to the person with dementia to participate in the social engagement activity that was happening in their town. So it wasn't just like, this is good for you. It was like the same way you'd get a prescription to take whatever your heart medicine. This was your prescription. Keep doing this twice a week, every week for the next 3 months, and then come back for a check. So even just thinking about what do we do when we make options available for people to understand the importance of participating can be ways that we can bolster people's well-being to participate in things that are already here. So that's the main thing. I think, there's a lot of, there are some treatments coming on the market and they're being picked up at different rates in different countries and worked on in different rates in different countries, but I don't have the exact statistics. And the reality is there's no cure anywhere in the world. So we're all sort of at the same place in terms of figuring out then what can we do to help people slow the progression and live the best life they can with the disease. And I think the change that's really happened over the past few years is the person with dementia and their care partner, caregiver. So marrying those two together, which is part of this bill S302, is to really work with physicians to understand the role of the care partner, both in the health of the person with dementia and in their own health. If we do something that causes people to not be able to take care of their health so they have greater health needs in the future, that's not going to be a very good plan for us. So how can we get ahead of that and really bring the care partner into the whole system and support them and support caring for the person with dementia?
Thank you.
Yeah, so that's go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just gonna, if you're done with that piece, I was just gonna, so I was thinking about just a lot of what we talked about and my constituents, and I was like, how can I go to them and have resources available in a better way? So over April, I'm gonna have an event where a lot of seniors reside in South Burlington and kind of have the Alzheimer's folks there and really just encourage people to take information, to help other family members, and really use like our role as legislators to connect with, folks in our communities and offer them those resources, and would be happy if others are interested. I know Meg and others, and I'm also working with AARP to have both of them. I'm excited about doing that and going to where people are, and hopefully folks will come and so often sometimes our senior neighbors are forgotten when in the process, and just want to make sure that show up for them too.
That's beautiful. Yeah, thank you so much. And I have told people here, and it is still coming, but one of the projects, we have several interns, and one of the projects they're going to be working on is writing a few messages that I'll be sharing with legislators that you can include in your legislative updates. So not about our bills, but about like the helpline, that you don't have to be in crisis, that you can use it just when you have a question, or you can use it in crisis. And just directing people to resources, support groups and resources that are around. So I was told that y'all would like having some cookie cutter language that you could pop in when you had space. And we're going to try and get that to you before the end of the session for you to use.
Just in the chat, Meg posted that the area agencies on aging are also a great resource for individuals.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That the area agencies on aging are the number one point place for anybody who's aging to get started with whatever they need, and we're consistently putting out their 800 number, and so that would be great. We'll try and include that in the messaging too. And yeah, so I'm going to turn it over now to other advocates. You saw them, a snippet of them in the last video, because they've done a lot with us around the state of Vermont, and they're going to be talking about our second priority this year. So Betsy and Jenny.
So my name is Betsy Bianchi, and this is my mom, Jenny Craig. She's not the diet lady, Jenny Craig. She's just my mom. As you saw, public speaking is not my comfort zone at all. But I am very passionate because of the fact that my mom is living with Alzheimer's, and she was always an advocate for things. And so she's inspired me and has been helping me and is my support system, even though she has the disease. She's been living with Alzheimer's for 9 years now. And to your point about the fact that being in an environment with other people is so important. We have wonderful things her doctors have said that she has progressed much more slowly because of the interaction. So support groups, being the lack of isolation is really important. We're also in support of both S302 and H535, but we are here specifically to talk about the support in increasing the dementia respite grant to $500,000 a year. This grant has not been increased since 2003. I don't know about you guys, but my costs of everything have gone up in these last 10 years. But it's really important to know that the cost of Vermonters living with Alzheimer's has increased exponentially in that time too.
Yes, yeah.
By 2025, the number of Vermonters living with Alzheimer's will have increased by an astounding 30.8% from 2020. So that's huge. That's really huge.
I'm worried.
Yeah, it makes us worried. So some of our fellow advocates testified last week, Barb and Daryl, but also a few other advocates as well about the importance of respite for family caregivers, especially since 70% of the estimated lifetime cost of more than $390,000 per person for each person living with Alzheimer's is shouldered by the families. So, yes, the state is doing some, but really it falls on families. So a family caregiver, Abby Palazza, is that how you say her name? Testified that increasing dementia respite grant would give her the strength she needs to pursue her dreams of attending graduate school outside of the state, where she no longer will be able to provide the much needed respite care for her mom, who is caring full time for her father with Alzheimer's. In my specific case, the dementia respite grant allowed me to attend the evidence-based caregiver education classes at the UVM Medical Center. Although I'm honored to be my mom's care partner and one of her caregivers, I had to give up my six-figure salary and my engineering career to do so. While love is an excellent attribute in caregiving, I found myself unprepared for the many challenges of being a family caregiver. Unfortunately, when I found the UVM Medical Center's careers class, I discovered that it would cost me over $2,000 out of pocket to attend, because my husband's healthcare plan has a very high deductible. So here I am without an income, and now I'm looking to try to educate myself so I can be a better caregiver. And that education is not only for me to care for my mom, but for me to care for myself as well, because the statistics are horrible for caregivers.
They sure are.
Yeah. As far as our health, because we tend to neglect ourselves, and I will attest to doing that. So anyway, the respite grant was able to help me pay for some of the costs for that much needed training. So not only is it respite in care, but it can be also used for training. So since so much of the burden for care is being shouldered by family members, we are asking the state to increase the allocated funding to $500,000 a year. And by doing so, that would mean that more than 100 more Vermonters would have access to some respite and support. So it really will be helpful. I know money is tight, but this is one of those ones that I think the value of it is also exponential, because the savings that you will have by providing the respite and the training that caregivers need is really important. So many thanks to Representative Noyes and Garfano for ensuring this request was included in the House Human Services letter to appropriations, and for all of you here and all of you out there for supporting folks like me that are just trying to do the best by their loved ones with Alzheimer's, and folks like my mom who are doing their best to live and thrive as much as they can with the disease. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. And it's good to hear how the impact that the dementia respite grants had, and how they can help people moving forward, especially if we're successful in increasing the money that's in the budget for them. So thank you for that. I know it's coming out our committee. Hopefully, I got to run back at 1 o'clock, and hopefully that's what we're voting on. And then we'll see where it goes from there. So.
And I did just get a request in the chat that if people could just say their names when they ask the question, because on the screen, we look tiny, just so you know, I've been on that side, and then we're like little dots, just so they know if it's their legislator or not. Please.
Yes, so Representative Karen Dolan, Essex Junction. So thank you for being here and sharing your story and your journey. And I don't know if this is a question for you or maybe for you, that 30% something increase that you shared is really, I think, significant. And I'm curious if you believe that that is due to more cases out there, or is it more detection that folks are kind of finding it sooner, or we're looking for it, or maybe it's a combination of both?
I think it's a combination of both. People are living longer. The biggest risk factor for Alzheimer's specifically, but also the related dementias, is age. So as you live longer, we also are diagnosing it a little bit better now too. It's not just that crazy woman at the end of the road that that is living by herself and is a nutcase now. She is somebody with dementia. So there is still a lot of stigma, however, and we've seen that firsthand. So there's still a lot more work to do, but we are doing better on both of those. I don't know, Meg?
Yes, that's absolutely, it is a combination of that, and it comes off of health reports each year, the number they come up with. So, and also just to say, Vermont is, depending on who you talk to, the oldest state in the nation, the second oldest state in the nation, or somewhere in the top 3. So obviously the prevalence per capita in our state is higher because we have a higher prevalence of older people in our state, and not to at all say dementia is a part of normal aging. It's not. It's just that your chances get higher with age. And if we have a lot of older people, we're going to have a little bit bigger bump.
I just appreciate the conversation too about kind of identifying it as early as possible. I would be probably falling in that category. In my family, my grandmother ended up dying of dementia a couple of years back, but we didn't know until it was like full blown and like it was clear. And so these steps that you're talking about of detecting it sooner and sooner can really change the course of somebody's life. So just appreciate the work that you're doing.
And from personal experience, we can say that it is a lot better for the person living with Alzheimer's, because my mom was able early on to be very involved in what her care plan was going to be going forward and what she wanted to do with her finances and all of that stuff. She wouldn't have been able to if it was diagnosed later. And most importantly, she was allowed to be in a clinical trial, whereas if she was diagnosed later, you have to be in the early stages for the clinical trials. So, and that was an important thing for her to do, to give back to society. So
You bet.
there's lots of really, really, really good reasons to be diagnosed early.
Betsy, I'm Senator Terry Williams from.
Yes, we've been
And
talking.
I got good news. That's 302 was just voted out of the Health and Welfare.
Yes.
Good news.
Yes. So is that going to be Friday, Senator Williams, do you think?
I expected.
Yep. So on Friday, he'll be, just for advocates and people that don't know, when he says he's going to report it, he'll be on the Senate floor saying this is what the bill is and this is why it's important before the full Senate votes on the bill. And that will probably happen this Friday. So thank you so much for being an advocate in that way with us.
Nice to meet you too.
Let's take one more question and then we'll show the last video because I know people have to get back to work.
So it's the, I have two, I'm just gonna stick with the one question. Yep, Edie Granning Jericho, Representative Jericho. The ask for $500,000 is raised from what? Because you said it was 2003 to Dan.
It's raised from 250,000, which it's been
Okay.
since 2003 to 500,000.
Okay,
Wow.
That's the request.
That's a request.
and then I guess since that was a
Yeah,
quick
let's
answer,
go.
thank you. My other question is, does the Alzheimer's Association have a recommendation on when folks should start getting screened? Because I know a lot of the organizations have, you know, recommended screening dates, and I'm curious if that's a piece that would be helpful.
The work we're doing on that is in S302. So what we're really working with the Vermont Department of Health and particularly the Alzheimer's Disease and Healthy Aging Program. It's a grant that we have from the CDC, is to see how can we make this part of the annual wellness visit for all Vermonters, Medicare and all Vermonters, starting at 65. But I think when we talk about it, like we actually would like it to start like maybe around 40. They basically say that your body starts to show, you start to have the disease about 20 years before the signs start to show. And especially with people who are in their 40s and 50s, because they're in the professional field, they're much better at the brain is much better at compensating for it. And they're much better at hiding it because they don't want to lose their jobs. So I think if we were to have the exam be earlier, particularly for people like Christelle mentioned, Mary Claire, when you have a family history, like, let's just start earlier. I always say, like, I don't like it when they make me get on the scale, but they make me get on the scale. But like, it would destigmatize it some if it was just like, this is a normal question that you get asked when you come in. So that is something that we're definitely working on with the Department of Health and with the UVM Medical Center and healthcare providers, and trying to get that started as early as possible. So a fabulous question, because we're gonna now move to our second video. Oh,
Just-
go ahead.
Just quick, I just want to, something in the chat that's, Rhonda posted from the Department of Health, that the Healthy Aging Program would be happy to attend community education events. The program offers monthly informational newsletter on dementia and brain health, and you're welcome to contact Ed DeMont, and I can make that connection if anyone wants it.
It's been fabulous working with them. We've been working close together, and we have a grant now that will continue that program for 5 years. And the specific focus is to build out our dementia infrastructure in Vermont. And there's 43 other states and municipalities doing it with us. And there's very specific, not what you do, but what the goals are. So one of the goals that we're really working on is reducing ER visits and unnecessary hospitalization, for instance. The wellness of the caregiver is one of the goals. So there's 4 areas that we work in with them, and really looking at how do we build the infrastructure to do this? How do we get physicians prepared to do this? As we move forward with this, infrastructure is probably going to become more brick and mortar, like things of like, what kinds of programs do we have for people if they're diagnosed early and they're active, and how do they get transportation there, and things that have been talked about in the older Vermonters Caucus prior. So the last video we're going to show is with an advocate on the screen, Pamela Smith, who has younger onset Alzheimer's. Many of you have seen her here. She is the one that makes the lovely flowers like I'm wearing and Betsy and Jenny are wearing. So I'm just going to do a tiny plug right now that we're going to have Alzheimer's Advocacy Day in the State House on March 28th, and I'll be reaching out to all of you to ask you what color boutonniere you'd like that Pamela makes, and the advocates will have the big flowers when we're in the House chamber for recognition, but we like to provide the opportunity for people to sort of see amongst their colleagues also the prevalence and maybe find connections in supporting each other. So this, I'm going to do share screen one more time, and this is a 3.5-minute video feed.
People are terrified of Alzheimer's. I'm terrified of Alzheimer's.
You're not alone.
Thank you, Senator.
Thanks, Senator.
You know, there was a lot of, oh my God, I'm so sorry. The hard ones were where I felt like people just wanted to get away. And they were just saying enough nice stuff to get themselves out. I got really sad about my mortality, feeling like my ability to contribute was gone. When you lose everything about your identity, you have to come up with new things. And you have to sort of look deep into what from the before times can I still use. It isn't that I lost everything. It felt like I lost everything, but I hadn't actually. When I decided I was going to be an advocate for the Alzheimer's Association, I thought that I was being an advocate for the Alzheimer's Association. It actually took me a little bit of time to realize was really about advocating for myself.
What do we want? Access. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Access. And when do we want it? Now. All right. Now before we go.
Social isolation can make us invisible, but I've chosen not to be invisible.
Both my grandfathers died from Alzheimer's, and then blue represents that I have it.
Decision makers need to hear what it actually feels like to live with Alzheimer's.
I can speak for myself. I would love to be a resource for you. I do.
And what the barriers are for us getting our needs met. I am a planner and a pragmatist, and I want to know that somebody else is going to take up the banner. And if things get better for everybody with Alzheimer's, that means it should get better for me too.
I'm going to stop it there. You know what the ending's like, so. Do you want to say one thing, Pamela? Or?
I guess I really wanted to say about the screening that if you wait to 65, that's 15 years after I started having memory issues, life interfering memory issues. And it took about 2 years to get a primary care provider to genuinely listen to what was going on for me, and that all the other misdiagnoses over those 2 years that we treated, and you know, it none of them worked, because that's not what the problem was. It wasn't because I have menopause. It wasn't because of anxiety. I got anxiety because I didn't know if I would remember a conversation, which made my job really challenging, because my job was to know what was going on with people. So, and I have a friend with younger onset in Rhode Island who got it at 45. She works at a highly accommodating place, and so she's actually still working. I needed to leave my job immediately. So I just wanted to raise awareness around that. Yeah, Meg is right. You need to start asking at 40. And I also wanted to highlight that, like in my case, my mother has dementia worse than I do, and I am her primary care provider. I think there are a lot of seniors in our state where the care provider is compromised themselves, but that's all they've got. I guess, and the last thing I wanted to highlight is that people with other mental health issues or physical health issues, they're just as susceptible. And I used to do mental health screenings for Addison County. And I would see people come in and say, my father is psychotic. He has a history of psychosis. And then I would meet with them and realize that's not actually what's happening right now. What's happening is you need to get your dad to a neurologist immediately, because I was seeing signs of dementia, not just a mental health issue. So that having a mental health issue can really delay diagnoses as well. And we just have to recognize they're just as susceptible to Alzheimer's as everybody else.
Thanks, Pamela. I know people have to get back to the floor. So I just wanted to say at the end for all of you, thank you so much. Last year, you listened to our advocates. We asked for a state dementia coordinator, and we have one now. Tiffany's on the screen. Tiffany, wave your hand. I believe, but this is a piece of the puzzle of starting to see, what do we really need? What are we doing that's not working? What are we doing that's working? How can we be more efficient? So we are absolutely thrilled to have her here and have her supporting us in that role, and very, very grateful for all of you and all of your colleagues that heard our calls for putting a light on this on the state level. So thank you so much. Thank you, Dan, for having us here today.
Thank you, everyone, for showing up, and thank you for the food.
Very welcome.
It's awesome.
You work
Great.
hard for us. Yeah.
Yay, appreciate it.
All right, before we close out, does anyone have anything they want to add? Anything coming up that? Okay, just thought I'd make some space, and we'll see you all, not next week, because next week we're on town meeting break, but it'll be the following week. So thank you all. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.